we've seen the large, the in charge, the medium, the premium, and now justice has been served. Karin is finally playable, and is our second Umbra Vanguard. Let's break down our builds, teams, and all the usual math with emblems, discs, etc. Karin is a bit of an interesting tracker in that she is the only one who does 0 skill damage. Instead, all of her damage is either classified as ultimate or auto attack damage, which, funnily enough, are the two types of damage that Firenze's builds don't focus on. Karin's first build focuses on dealing constant ultimate damage, and her second build focuses on auto attacks. The main difference between the use cases of these two builds is that the first one can benefit significantly from F2P discs, namely the Finale Echoing RGB discs, which boost ultimate damage passively. The ultimate build is also more straightforward to play, while the auto attack build has little optimizations and specific timings to watch for. Let's talk about teams. While Karin's ultimate build synergizes with Otoha's ultimate build by buffing its crit damage, it performs equally well with her skill build in a neutral environment. The damage increase granted by having a whole set of Finale Echoing ultimate damage discs is so significant that I had to highlight it here. Without it, you're only reaching around 2/3 of the damage ceiling of the ultimate build. The auto attack build is quite powerful, though it is harder to reach the maximum damage with this. If you don't have Otoha, you can use Mystique or Coronis instead. A generic support such as Suntide Willow can also work, but you'd have to avoid the mono Umbra potentials. We'll start out with the auto attack build, with Otoha and Cassette as teammates. Take Scattershot and Hunting Dark Shackle as cores on Karin. Aura of Unity is the highest priority, followed by Dark Shackle Detonation and High Threat Target. Hunting Suppression and Self-Transcend can both be taken afterward, with Confidence Booster being decently weaker. On Otoha, run her Weeping Sky build with Ripple of Shadow and Evening Rain as cores. Devouring Shadow is the first priority, followed by both Bone Chilling Rain and Rainwoven Sorrow. The latter is mandatory to max, as this will allow her AoE to continuously hit a stationary target. Missing out on this means losing damage and debuff uptime. Murmur of Annihilation has a lower value, but is still a decent buff. Finally, on Cassette, take Eclipse Imprint and Phantom Mark as cores. Dark Afterglow is a priority, with Gift of Darkness and Dark Demon Mark being very comparable in value. Nether Blaze can be taken if you have a lot of charge efficiency. If you don't have Otoha, here are some alternatives. Misty and Coronis have very little damage increasing potentials, making them a bit awkward to get a good run in, as you'll be forced to take some of their subpar potentials. When running Suntide Willow, you'll need to drop High Threat Target or Hunter's Command from Karin, as it requires a mono Umbra team. Let's now cover Karin's ultimate build. In this build, you'll want to run Predator's Vortex and Shark Ambush as cores. Aura of Unity remains a high priority, with Deep Sea Conflict and Crashing Wave coming in after that. Twin Predator is a medium priority, and Hunter's Command as well as Confidence Boost can be considered afterward. We'll use Otoha's ultimate build here as well, with Lonely Twin Shadows and Nightwalker as cores. Solitary Lantern, Devouring Shadow, and Without a Trace are her highest priorities, with Murmur of Annihilation being a decent pickup afterward. Cassette's priorities are roughly the same in the auto attack build, with Demon Mark moving up slightly in priority due to the lesser amount of damage taken in this build. Let's talk gameplay priorities. For the ultimate focus build, the gameplay is extremely simple. There's nothing wrong with hitting almost everything off cooldown, including ultimates, aside from cassettes, which you want to time, and ideally use around 4 seconds before her skill comes back up. The auto attack build is a bit more interesting. Here, you'll want to pay very close attention to her hunting energy and skill cooldown. When her hunting energy is full, she will cast a link, granting buffs, doing damage over time, and increasing her hunting energy generation. This has a fast cast time, but you can interrupt it, which is extremely bad, as you'll lose all the aforementioned effects. Notably, as soon as you link and reset the meter, your next several auto attacks will fire additional bullets, decaying over time. However, due to hide their target amping the damage of these autos when your skill is on cooldown, you're faced with an awkward decision, as using the skill cooldown carelessly may lead to missing out on the largest volleys, while holding it leads to missing the amp. The TLDR is, just use your skill off cooldown, as in the grand scheme of things, the total damage is very similar whether you hold it or not. There is also an alternate strategy where you use her skill off cooldown, but immediately dodge cancel it each time. This gets you more auto attacks, but loses the energy gain from the skill, which can be a problem if running potentials such as Karin's Self-Transcend or Cassette's Nether Blaze. As such, this is mainly recommended for those who haven't rolled Rainbow Charge Efficiency on their cassette. Finally, you'll also want to stagger cassette and Otoha skill by 1 second, using cassettes first. This is needed to make sure you don't drop stacks of hunting suppression and confidence booster. Use Karin's ult only if running Self-Transcend. Otherwise, you don't need to bother with it. Karin's talents buff her ultimate build significantly more than her auto attack build. Note that the ultimate build calculations use 3 finale discs in the support slot, so even with that dilution, the total increase is quite considerable. Let's look at emblems, starting with the auto attack build. On the 70 emblem, aside from Pen, which is drawn as always, auto attack damage is actually worth more than crit rate. On the 80 emblem, skill plus 3 is preferable over auto plus 3, due to how her potentials still scale with main skill level for some reason. On the 90 emblem, due to Aura of Unity affecting teammates, we'll compare team damage differences here. Aura of Unity has a very strong near 10% team damage increase, while the other options are a good margin weaker. Hide their target in particular, despite being a decently strong potential, has horrid scaling after level 6, and should be avoided. In the ultimate build, ulti damage is worth a bit less than crit rate, but still decently strong, especially considering that this is with 3 finale discs. Skill plus 3 is even stronger here, and for a similar reason as Otoha, that is, that a lot of her ultimate damage doesn't actually come from her ultimate cast itself. Ultimate plus 3 is not very strong at all. Aura of Unity is very powerful for this build as well, with Crushing Wave also being decent. For discs, in the auto build, both Otoha and Karin's limited discs come very close. Witch's Wing is fairly competitive as well. Otoha and Karin's event discs are slightly better than the Cataclysm disc, and comparable to the finale disc. Suntide Willow's limited disc is a fairly strong support slot, but note that this can be diluted a lot by emblems. Firenze's event and limited discs are actually completely worthless in the main slot, as you can't even benefit from any of their effects. In the ultimate build, Otoha's limited disc is a small margin stronger than Karin's disc here. RGB finale discs are so powerful that they can even compete for the main slot. But better just keep them in the support slot anyway, as there's only 3 of them. Again, avoid franchise discs. That's it for this guide to Karin. As always, you can find the calculations on the public damage calculator sheet, which also has a library of all the build codes covered in this video, and others. Alternatively, the build codes and text version of this guide can be found in the description. See you next time, bye bye!